We are back. So this time we're going to try on a alternative device. All right. So I switch devices. So hopefully we can get through this time. All right. So let's get back to it. This is called Why the Devil is So Hated, and this is being done at the witching hour. And once again, I want to take my time with this. Not that I'm going to take much time. What's up, Keenan? 93. I want to take my time with this. What's up, Sharice? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, let's get to it. So if we go to the story of Genesis, when in the Bible, when it speaks about the punishment that was given to the serpent, the punishment that was given to the serpent was that the serpent had to crawl on his belly and eat dust for the remainder of its time. Now, if we take that on face value, it's just going to seem like a punishment. We must peel back the layers to truly understand what this is speaking about. As whenever we approach any of the holy books or the so called holy books, we must understand that they are multi-dimensional. They can be taken literal or they can be taken metaphysical or they can be taken psychological or they can be taken, you can say, occult wise for those with wisdom. So it really depends on a person's personal understanding what they will get from these stories. And the reason I want to start with that particular story in Genesis, because it represents an oxymoron. What I mean by an oxymoron is if we have ever seen a snake already crawls on its belly. So if a snake already crawls on its belly, because a snake doesn't have arms or legs, so the serpent or the snake is already crawling on its belly. So what is this really trying to tell us here? If a snake already crawls on its belly, how could it be punished by crawling on its belly if it already crawls on its belly? Unless the serpent was not what we consider a snake. Even though if you look at any art of the story of Genesis or the story of Adam and Eve, you're going to see Adam, you're going to see Eve, but you're going to also see a snake, just like you see the forbidden fruit called an apple. So a snake is always shown when it comes to this particular story. And we see a snake already crawling on its belly. So how was the serpent punished to do what it already was doing? Unless this is a metaphysical story with a metaphysical meaning that takes some wisdom to gain the true understanding of, while everybody else takes it literally, and all you're left with is a literal understanding, which is not an understanding at all. It's just basically knowledge and information. Because what are you really going to do with that? Because everybody, condemns the devil. Nobody wants to be, associated with the devil. So let me give a greater perspective, which leads into the first question. Why is the devil so hated? There is a simple answer and there is a more complex answer. If we start with the simple answer, it is because the devil is the Son of God. Now, when I say that, when we say the Son of God, we automatically think about Jesus or the Christ, right? But we must understand here, Genesis never mentions the creation of the serpent, as we call the devil. What is mentioned is the creation of Adam, the creation of Eve, Adam naming all of the animals. It even mentions the creation of the planets in 7 days, 6 days, and rested on the seventh day. But there is no mention of the creation of the so-called devil. Why is that? The answer is this. It's because the devil is older than creation. Now we may say, well, if Lucifer was already in heaven, and was condemned and sent to hell, well, that would make sense. All this was occurring before the planet was ever created. That's one way to look at it. But let's take it a step further. There are two gods. It's not just one God, there are two gods. According to the Gnostics, which were the early Christians. So according to the Gnostics, you had the real God, which was called the monad, who was the creator of the spirit world. Then you have what we call Yahweh, who was the creator of the physical world, the creator of the matrix. These are not the same beings. So the reason why the devil's creation is not mentioned, because the devil predates creation. You can say the devil was created by the real God. So now when I say, well, the devil is the Son of God, this is not to confuse the fake God or the false God with the real God. The devil would then be the son of the real God, not the son of the false God. You can say Jesus became the son of the false God, which is why they called him the Christ. But truly, the first Christ, 93 Josh, the first Christ was actually the devil. Because the first Christ predates creation. So now let's take it to the story of Lucifer being in heaven. And I'm using these names interchangeably, but we know these are all different essences. Lucifer was created on purpose to be the ruler of the angels, which is why he or she, because the angels are androgynous, they don't have gender. Lucifer was purposely created to be the ruler of the angels, which is why he was able to convince half of the heavens that he was actually the true God, because he or she was in fact the son or even the daughter, if we want to go to the feminine form of the monad. So that would make the devil the first Christ before there was ever a planet Earth. Okay? This is the beginning. So when we hear about the story of the fall of Lucifer being condemned to hell, the reason this occurred is because Lucifer was meant to evolve and penetrate into the physical plane as the true Christ. So you follow me here. This Jesus figure is not the true Christ. The true Christ is Lucifer. So Lucifer being condemned to hell, and why Lucifer is tempting everybody to sin, is because Lucifer was here to guide people to the true God. Not the false God, the true God. Which then leads us to the second question. What is a real devil worshiper? Because we know these people are not responsible for why the world is the way it is. What do I mean? If you look at the people doing all of the crimes, if you look at all of the politicians that are corrupt, all of the governments that are corrupt, who do they follow? It's not the devil. They follow God. Most people in government, probably all of them, have a religion. They're either Christians or Catholics, Mormons, and anything in between, right? These are religious people. None of these people say that they are followers of Satan. And if they did, they probably would not be in a position of power, now would they? So let's take this a step further. So if all of the people in power follow the false God, it is therefore the false gods doing in creation as to why the world has a flaw and why the world is corrupt. So if the devil is the son or daughter of the true God, and somehow the devil has access to everybody, because how is the devil tempting everybody to sin and temptation, right? So that means the devil has influence over everybody. That makes him or her omnipresent, just like God would be, right? Why does the devil have these attributes? Why does the devil have these powers if he or she is not, in fact, a divine being? We do not hear about demons having the power to universally influence people. They may influence individuals, but we don't hear demons having just this ultimate power to lead people astray. Collectively, maybe individually, but not collectively. There's no one demon with this all power, except what we would say the devil. But why does the devil have these powers? Who gave the devil these powers to do what he does or what she does? Where does this power come from? This power comes from, again, the true God called the monad, because the devil is the first and true Christ. So this is why in every religion, the devil is condemned. The devil is hated. People frown upon a so-called devil worshiper. That's why they were so quick to kill the witches, because witches are supposed to be worshippers of the devil. Just do the history on the witches' Sabbath. So that's why everyone has always had all this smoke for witches, whether it be male or female, man or woman. Because there's something about these people that's real. You're not prosecuting these people because they're fake or because they don't have power. These people were killed off and prosecuted, and the worst things you can think of happened to these people because they had access to what we call the devil. Now, as I said, when is the last time, and I've said these things before, just to further make the point, when is the last time you heard about a so-called devil worshiper doing something completely crazy? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's a rare occurrence. It's rare that a so-called devil worshiper makes it to mainstream media because they did something outrageous. This does not happen every day. Meaning, these are not the people that's killing people on a daily basis. People are dying every day on a daily basis, whether it's from gun violence, whether it's from alcohol, whether it's from drugs, whatever is causing people to dissipate. Most of the people doing the killing, most of the people doing the wrong are religious. How do we know? Even if you listen to the so-called drill music, they're not talking about the devil. If anything, they would actually mention God. They still mention that they follow God, or they're trying to move in the direction of God. Listen to hip hop, listen to rap. They're going to mention God before they mention the devil. So even though you're out here dropping bodies, even though you're out here robbing, stealing, killing, and all of this madness, they still claim obedience to God. They still look at God as the highest power or the higher power, so therefore they seek forgiveness. So what does this tell you? Most of the criminals, whether the criminals are street criminals or political criminals, they still are followers or worshipers of God. Because the moment you have an association with the devil, now you will be condemned. But now we know why. Because if you gain any allegiance to the true Christ, the world hates you for that. The world condemns you for that. But when you claim obedience to a false God and a false Christ, the world loves you. The world supports you. The world is actually willing to forgive you. So what's really going on here? Why is the world so willing to forgive those who follow behind a false God and a false Christ? Well, according to the Gnostics, once again, the false God, the God of the matrix, the God of the material world, the creator God, is the one who holds power down here. So that God, you can say, is the one who's pulling the strings. So you can say this is why certain people don't go to jail, who very well should go to jail for political crimes. And this is also why people do go to jail when they do street crimes. But when it comes to followers of the devil or worshipers of the devil, again, these are not the people committing the crimes. Mostly. I'm not saying that they're crime free. But these are not really the people breaking the law. The jails are not filled with devil worshippers. The government is not filled with devil worshippers. So clearly, these are not the people that's causing havoc in the world. Because there's something about these people where they actually put their power on a higher plane. They may be the ones casting spells, doing the voodoo, rising the kundalini, so on and so forth. These tend to be the people who really find no reason to get their hands dirty at all. So because these people concentrate their energy and their focus towards higher planes of existence, of course they're going to be the most hated, because the so-called creator God, the false God, and the false Christ, they can't do anything with these people. What are you going to do to a person that has committed no crime? All they do is conduct spells, rituals, rites. They're not going to go out and harm anybody. There's no need to. There's other ways to get the job done. You don't need to pick up a gun. You don't need to exercise violence. So when we go back to the Gnostics, and I use them as an example because they were the early Christians. Before Christianity became mainstream, these were the true Christians. These were not violent people. These people were, in fact, more into divination than violence. So what we would consider the tarot readers, the oracles, the tantric practitioners, practicing the sex rites, rising of the kundalini, all of the things that we see happening nowadays. This was the lifestyle of the Gnostics. Once Christianity came in, and when Christianity became mainstream, all of that changed. Because now the witches became public enemy number one, because they were direct agents to the so-called devil, which is the true Christ. Right? Meaning we have never seen a war that was waged on the witches and the so-called devil worshippers. Everybody went against these people. Meaning this transcended religion, and it does to this day. Meaning nobody likes a devil worshiper. It don't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, Mormon, Jewish, put any religion there, all of these people don't like devil worshippers. So this transcends religion. That should give you all the answers you need, all the evidence you need, all the proof you need to see what's really going on here. So if devil worshippers are hated across the board, meaning everybody fucking hates these people, even though these people are not doing much of anything to anyone. except divine justice. What else do you need to know? So religion came together. So you see that they don't get along. Christians don't get along with Muslims. They don't get along with the Jewish people. These people really don't get along. But one thing they can get along with, one thing they can agree upon, is the witches are the enemy. The devil worshippers are the enemy. They are the threat. That's one thing that they can agree on, if nothing else. The one thing, if nothing else, that they can agree on is the devil is the enemy. So how has this single idea transcended all religion to the point where they collectively come together to stop any of these people or these ideas, this ideology? Why is it such a big deal? Well, now we know because apparently the devil has to have some type of real power. But this power isn't necessarily what we think. The devil is not the person leading it. Or not, let me not say person. The devil is not the entity, the spirit, the being, whatever you want to call it, that's leading people to the gates of hell. How do we know this? Because again, most people that will go to hell, if we're just going along with the mainstream, most people that you're going to find in hell are not going to be devil worshippers. How do we know this? Because they're not the one committing the crime. They're not the ones that's going to break into your house. They're not. They're not the ones that's going to shoot you. They're not the ones that's going to kill you. These people actually don't give a fuck about you. The people that actually give a fuck about you is the religious people. These are the people that have an over concern about all of this stuff. These are the people that's willing to get violent with you. How do we know this? If you speak about the Muslims, their Prophet Muhammad, if you speak about him in a negative light, they will be willing to kill you. And that is a part of their law. They will kill you religiously. The Christians, they'll throw you in jail and they'll sentence you to death. These people are willing to kill you and are willing to get violent with you. Devil worshippers, not so much. Not so much. Because again, if we look at hell, hell is not going to be filled with devil worshippers because they're not the ones doing any of these things. Instead, these are the ones following the original system. These people are following the original laws, which there's no need to do anything to anybody. Why? There's no need to take from anybody. There's no need to harm anybody. Not physically, at least, because again, the devil predates this physical plane. So if the devil predates this physical plane, why would a devil worshiper concentrate their energy into the physical plane in the way that the religious people do? They run this physical world. There's no doubt about that. They are the ones creating the laws. They're the ones sentencing you to jail for the rest of your life if you do something crazy. The devil worshippers don't have that type of power. Which is why the so-called devil has to tempt people. That's why they use that language. The devil can't make you do anything, but the devil can tempt you. Because the devil don't have any power like that over the physical plane because the devil predates the physical plane. So what does that tell you? So if there is a hell is not going to be filled with devil worshippers because again, these people are not doing anything to anybody for the most part. I'm not saying that they all are innocent, but for the most part, they're not doing anything. These people are fucking harmless for the most part. These are not the people you have to worry about doing anything to you. People don't buy guns to protect their home from devil worshippers. People don't buy guns to protect their home and their family from a witch. Because honestly, what's a gun to a witch? A witch has no use for a gun. Because that wouldn't make you a witch now, would it? Just because you're able to pick up a gun and use it, does that make you a witch? No. Anybody can do that. So clearly, what makes a person a witch, again, whether male or female, is not their ability to cause violence. It's not their ability to cause harm. It's not their ability to cause chaos in a physical sense. These are not why this is not why these people are feared, because of some type of physical threat or some type of physical harm. These people are considered a threat because they have access to a higher power, or in this case, a lower power, because the devil is supposed to be the ruler of hell, even though the devil's origins is in heaven. Hell also, you can say, is below the earth. So if the devil has any power, it's not the physical plane, it's the lower worlds that we call the tree of death, that we call the clip off. This would be where we find the Satan. This is where we will find the devil and the clip off. This is where the rulership takes place. The dark side, as we call it, right? So what does this tell you? People, once again, do not fear the devil because of some type of physical threat. People fear the devil, Lucifer, Satan, whatever name or title you want to use, because of that clip-offic effect. What do I mean by that clip-offic effect? Meaning your ability to not have to raise a finger to do anything to anybody, but you know how to get shit done. But you do so in a manner that's non-violent. Martin Luther King, why do you think he was about non-violence? Named after Martin Luther. Just think about that. His name was given to him for a reason, and he promoted non-violence for a reason. And you see, when he began to come into his true power, they eliminated him. See, when he was all about integration, he was all good. Mix the black dollar with the white dollar. I want my black kids to be able to go to the same schools of white kids, have the same opportunities of white kids. I have a dream. When he was pushing that perspective, it was all good. He was technically safe, right? Everybody was for that. But as he matured, once he began to realize, like, yo, this is a mistake. And how do we know it? It's the evidence. See, when we think about Martin Luther King, they want to control his image. See, they don't want to let you know how he changed towards the end of his life, which is why he was snaked out. Remember, the day he died, he was surrounded by pastors, aka he was surrounded by Christians on the day of his death. But there's also a picture of Martin Luther King with Elijah Muhammad. He began to speak and have conversations with Elijah Muhammad because he began to agree with what Elijah Muhammad was doing, which was segregation. You know, keep our shit over here and keep their shit over there. That was the perspective of Elijah Muhammad. which is the perspective that he began to adhere to towards the end of his life. The evidence is there, but we don't highlight this evidence. Martin Luther King also wrote a letter when he was in college about the pagan origins of Christianity. We don't highlight that part either. He wrote a letter, or basically he was in college and I guess he had an assignment. He wrote about the pagan origins of Christianity. Nobody even mentions this letter because it tells you the truth. So while everybody was thinking he was a Christian, if you read this letter, you're going to be blown away. Like, yo, he actually knew the truth and he laid it down. It's in the letter, which you can look up right now. The evidence is right there. He mentioned certain pagan deities, such as Kybele. He mentioned Mithras. He mentioned how Christianity became a dominant power because it took the ideas of all of these other traditions and integrated them. He speaks about this. So all of the early rivals of Christianity destroyed those people and then took their ideas. Early Christians took the ideas of the pagans and made them into a Christian idea. This is a reason why when you read the Bible, you can say, oh, this is the truth. Because the Bible is a collective of all the truth that came before it. All Christianity is an invention of everything that came before it. That's how it became the dominant religion on the planet. Because it's not original. It took all of the original ideas and it made it into one collective idea and then whitewashed it. This has all been documented. This was all spoken about. Okay? So all Christianity is alchemy of all the original ways of life put into one pot, and then they give you the white Jesus. So when we read the New Testament, for example, and you hear the words of the false Christ, we say, like, oh shit, he's speaking some real shit. And indeed he was, because the ideas predate him. He did not originate any of these ideas. That's why they want to keep you on this man or this false Christ. They want to keep you fixated on his image because none of the ideas are original. And this is also why they remove the books that told you how he gained his knowledge. They don't want you to know where he got it from because it's going to take you back to the source. And then you realize, okay, well, none of the stuff he was saying was original. So where did the angels come from? They were a creation of the real God called the monad. And the Quran speaks about the angels were created just like the jinns were created by the real God. The angels and the jinns were created by the monad. But the monad had nothing to do with the creation of the physical world. The monad only created, again, the angels or the heavens, and you can say the hells. So the true God created the heavens and the hells, but not the physical plane. Which is why when we hear the story of the devil starting in heaven and then being condemned to hell, because these are creations of the real God. The physical plane was nowhere on the scene till later on by a false God that we call Yahweh, your brother Thoth. Right? But we don't know these things because we have lost the Gnostic teachings. The Gnostic Bible or the Nag Hammadi Library was just discovered in 1945. We just rediscovered the Gnostic texts in the 20th century. And before that, they had been lost for hundreds of years. So all of these ideas have been hidden from us for hundreds of years. We just rediscovered them a little over 100 years ago. Actually, it's been less than 100 years. If they were discovered in 1945, it's not even been 100 years. So that's why these ideas are new to us. It's old to the world, but they are new to us because we did not have access to this information because it was outlawed by the powers that be, by the people that were in power. They outlawed the information. So you had no access to it. And if it was found that you did have access to it, they were going to kill you. You see how that works? If you had a Gnostic Bible, they were going to kill you. That's why they had to be buried. People didn't bury these works because they were just outlawed or forbidden. No, if you were found to have these texts, you were going to die. That's the creation of the false God. Why would the real God kill you over truth? So that's how you know that's the creation of the false God. So they buried the truth, and if you had it, you were killed. It's just that simple. So that's why for hundreds of years, we did not have access to that till recently, to the last century. And guess where they were found? Oh, that's right, in Egypt, Kemet. The only people that preserved the Gnostic teachings were the Kemetic people. They were not found in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in France. They were not found in Europe. They were found in Kemet. So what does that tell you? It's the same thing that I've been telling you, that these teachings come from the Kemetic people. Early Christianity is in fact the teachings of Egypt, which is alchemy, without all of the gods and goddesses. That's all it is. That's the only difference. Early Christianity or the Gnostic teachings is just Kemetic teachings without all of the gods and goddesses. So now we're not talking about Osiris and Isis and Horus. They condensed it into one solid foundation, meaning they just took everything that was essential. They took all that extra shit away. There was no need for it anymore. Times were changing, the cycles were changing. So there was no need to worship Osiris, Isis, and Horus, which are just Greek terms. Asar, Aset, and Haru. There was no need to worship those gods and those goddesses. So everything was condensed into the bare minimum. Basically, the alchemical teachings were reduced to everything that was essential. And that's all that was left. Everything else went to the wayside because it wasn't needed in the first place. Because that was just about culture. So when you go to Egypt and you look at what they were doing with the gods and goddesses, that was more of a cultural thing. They used that mythology to teach alchemy. So when you hear about the story of Osiris, the story of Isis, the story of Horus, that's all alchemy in the form of mythology. So once we got to the time of the Gnostics, the only thing left was the alchemical secrets without all the fluff, because it was no longer needed, because it was just there as a teaching tool in the first place. All mythology is a teaching tool. It's not necessary, but it's easier to remember a story versus trying to remember chemistry and alchemy, which is the science of the stars and the effects they have on the physical plane. It's easier to remember the concepts in story form, meaning it's easier to remember the story of Osiris than knowing the seven universal laws. That's all it is. It's just easier to preserve the secrets in story form. So again, when the Gnostics came around, people didn't have time to remember all of these stories. So they just reduced it to one figure called the Christ. So now we're not going to call it Horus or Haru. We're going to call it the Christ. And the Christ is the one who preserved the Kemetic teachings, the alchemical teachings. There's one person. So instead of all this extra stuff, it just focused on one being, and that one being is conveying the secrets to the disciples. 93, Mary. So that's what this is. This is the Kemetic alchemical teachings without all of the fluff. So truly, you don't need to know any of that stuff. You don't need to know about the Egyptian mythology, the Greek mythology, because they were just there to preserve the secrets. It's not that you need to know any of this stuff, even when you work with the gods and you work with the goddesses. They just tap you into chambers that you already have within yourself. That's why it's know thyself. It's not know the gods and the goddesses. It's know thyself. We use the gods and the goddesses as tools to unlock chambers within your own consciousness. So that's why the Gnostics they felt no need to preserve that. All they wanted was the essentials, which is where we are now. That's why the Gnostic teachings were rediscovered in a time that we can understand it. Because you see, the laws had to change. And once the laws changed, now we were able to comprehend these things. Because we no longer needed to think like the people of the old thought. We didn't need hundreds of gods and hundreds of goddesses to convey a message. We no longer needed to do that. All we needed was one figure. So once again, the only thing that the Christians did, which is just politics, is remove the alchemical teachings, condemn Egypt in the Bible, and then give you a focus on the why Christ. Who was a Christ? The false Christ of a false God. Why do I say that? Because if you mention the works of the Gnostic Christ, they will consider that the devil. I mean, if you go to your church, your local church, and you tell them about the Gnostic teachings, they're going to look at you like you are a devil worshiper. They're not going to accept that as the true teachings, true Christian teachings, because they're not Christian teachings. They are Kemetic teachings. It's just that simple. Right? So going back to the main point here, the devil is a true Christ, the first Christ, because the devil predates the physical plane. So even when we read the New Testament and we hear about the devil trying to tempt Jesus, and Jesus then say, devil get behind me, or Satan get behind me. See, people take that literally. They don't even know what it's talking about. So when Jesus says, Satan get behind me, people look at that as, if you take it literally, okay, I'm gonna, I put the dark side behind me. Then I put my God self in front of me, like the Sphinx. I keep my God head in front while the animal body at the bottom. But we completely misunderstand what this is really talking about. If the devil was behind you, if Satan is behind you, he didn't get cast away. If the devil is behind you, that's a representation of the true Christ. What do I mean? Meaning you can't stop the true Christ. Just like the devil can't be destroyed. Now can he? Or can she? You can rid yourself of the devil. You cannot accept the Christ though, right? Because like, if you are a Christian, that means you have accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, right? That's basically what makes you a Christian, because you have accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior. So let's just say you accept the devil as your Lord and your Savior. How does that change the dynamics? That's basically, once again, the lifestyle of a witch, whether male or female. That's what a witch does, or that's the representation that a witch has. And that's why they felt the need to destroy the witches. As I told you in a previous video, witchcraft was condemned all the way up till 1950. And when 1950 came, which is basically the laws were changed, they invented what we call today Wicca. Soon as they were allowed to, because the witches were no longer being prosecuted, soon as that law changed, Wicca is created, right? And if we look at what Wicca is in the original manifestation, not the manifestation it is now, where it's just completely feminine, I just talked about this. The original manifestation of Wicca included the horned god. It didn't just speak about the goddess, it also spoke about the horned god. That's what the 5 points are, right? You see the star, the pendant, the 5 points is 3 points for the triple goddess. But then it's 2 points for the horned god. That's where you get the 5 points from. 2 for the horned god, the horns, and then 3 for the triple goddess, right? But you're not going to hear that from a wicked witch in today's times, because they have removed the horned god. I wonder why. Because a horned god is the devil, the true Christ. So in the original manifestation of Wicca in 1950, the horned god is there, the devil is there. And this is also why they removed the devil, because they wanted to go mainstream. And then it just became feminine. Without the horned god, without the devil, without the witch's Sabbath. That's why they did that. Because they just couldn't have the devil there. You can't have that horned god there. That's going to lead people to the devil. That's going to lead people to the true Christ. So we see this even in the manifestation of Wicca. The original manifestation of Wicca included the so-called devil, along with the feminine. So what we call the divine masculine was not the Christ that we call Jesus. The divine masculine was the horned god that we call the devil. So that means the true divine masculine is actually the devil. It's not the Christ, the false Christ. It's the real Christ, which is the devil. Then the divine feminine represents the triple goddess. And remember, if we go to Islam, we know about that triple goddess. When Muhammad was possessed by the shaitan, he mentioned the triple goddess, who were the original idols of Mecca. That's why Muhammad came into Mecca, to destroy the 360 idols that were ruled by the triple goddess. So the triple goddess, then you got to go to Islam, you see. So Islam condemns the triple goddess, while Christianity condemns the devil. And we know 360 idols just represents the 360 degrees of the zodiac. So that means the mysteries of the triple goddess is found within the 360 degrees of the zodiac, which we all have. But then we take away the horn God. So that means that it makes the teachings incomplete. That's why you see all these Wiccan witches. They're all over the place. They're just extra feminine. They're no good really for a man at all because they're too. You can say they're too much in their Aquarian energy. They're imbalanced because they completely removed the divine masculine and just left the feminine. So that's why a lot of them are lesbians. A lot of them is just all about women's empowerment, and that had nothing to do with the original manifestation of Wicca. They basically made it political. It just became a women's empowerment movement, which was never the point until they made it mainstream. Just like the Christ was never supposed to be the Christ until they made it mainstream. Right? I would say it's just that simple, but it's not. You see, there's a lot of fuckery. Most people are deceived. Most people can't even hear what I'm saying because they're too wrapped into what they already believe. Right? Women just want to destroy men. I'm not speaking about all women, but those types of women, they just have a fucking hard on trying to just destroy the masculine. This is why. Then you got men mad at the woman. This is why. Because people are imbalanced. Meaning, when you have a Christ or a divine masculine without a feminine, what do you think is going to happen? When you have the divine feminine without the divine masculine, what do you think is going to happen? This is what I'm saying. So they're going to give you a Christ. They give you the divine masculine, but then they take away the divine feminine. Or they will give you the divine feminine and take away the divine masculine. And then people are expected to be balanced. So that's why these are the most treacherous people on the planet. These so-called Christians and Wiccans, right? These are the most treacherous people on the planet because they are imbalanced. So there's no way they can bring you balance because they can't bring themselves balance. Yeah, exactly. Gerald Gardner took Wicca to the mainstream, exactly. So when you look at his form of Wicca, he included the horn god. So I'm glad you mentioned his name for people that want to do the research so that you can verify everything that I'm saying. And then you try to call me a liar when you verify the history yourself. Right? So you try to mix and spin and shit. You know, do the history and you're gonna find this to be true. And ain't nothing you can do about it. Again, we don't have to make up shit, right? Right? Just with a little bit of research, we can find everything that's coming out of my mouth is facts. Unless you just choose not to fuck with it. And that's your own personal choice. But that's why you're imbalanced. It's just that simple. If anybody find any fault with what I'm saying, it's because you're imbalanced. Because you're either super masculine or you're super feminine, and you don't want to fuck with the opposite, and that's on you. It's just that simple. It's on you. You see, I don't big up the divine masculine and say fuck the feminine. I don't say fuck the feminine and just big up the masculine. You see, I try to be as balanced as possible. That's my whole thing. I want to be as balanced as possible. So that's why I'm speaking about witches, male or female. So, and you see, I've been doing this the whole time. All I'm attempting to do here is give you an understanding of why the world is imbalanced, so that you can see why you are imbalanced if you are imbalanced. Why you don't want to fuck with the divine masculine or why you don't want to fuck with the divine feminine. Again, and you see this trickles down to our relationships. Why do you think we don't get along? Right? Why do you think modern relationships are all over the place? Why do you think that is? Because most people are religious. Most people only accept the masculine or only accept the feminine. So don't expect peace in your home when you only acknowledge one and not the other. Don't expect peace in your home. Don't expect peace in your world because it all comes down to perception. It's whatever you choose to perceive. And we just, unfortunately, a lot of people choose to perceive that your enemy is actually your opposite. There are women who believe that men are the reason why this world is fucked up. Just like there's men who believe it's the woman's fault, right? Oh, it's Eve's fault. She the one who gave the apple to Adam. Then you got the men, that like, oh, it's her fault. Then you got the women. Oh, it's men. Men are not, performing their duty. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. This is where all this comes from. Because I guarantee these people don't acknowledge both sides. Because the mainstream doesn't feed you both sides. So I gave you the example with Christianity. I gave you the example with Islam. And that's why when you study Judaism, that's why they call Lilith the queen of the jinn. So they mention Lilith, but they only mention her in the form she became the queen of the jinn because she refused to submit to Adam. But you see, even people that fuck with Lilith, they take that shit overboard. You see, and that's what I mean. That's why you have women that just say like fuck men because like they refuse to submit to men. They don't want nothing to do with that. They just take it way out of proportion, right? So they fuck with Lilith, but they don't want to fuck with the horn of God. It's like you got people that fuck with the so-called masculine devil, but they don't want to fuck with the feminine form, right? But if you fuck with me, I'm gonna give you the truth. If you fuck with me, you're gonna be balanced. If you fuck with me, you're gonna know exactly what's going on. So that's why I give you the history and I give you a call. I'm not just super occult. I'm gonna give you the history too, so that you can do your own research, so that you can see what's going on with your own eyes and come to your own understanding. So now we see why the devil is the most hated. Because it represents the true Christ. It represents the missing piece of the puzzle. That's also why the Knights Templar were accused of worshiping the Baphomet. Right? The whole Knights Templar was destroyed because they were accused of worshiping the Baphomet, which is what? An androgynous being. It has the goat head for the horn god, but it also has breasts representing the feminine. It has a masculine arm and a feminine arm. So now they became one. So that's why so many people hate the Baphomet. That's just a divine masculine and a divine feminine in one form. So now you understand why it has a goat head, because a goat head represents the horned god. Right? So to truly be balanced, you must merge the two into one. The duality must become singular. So when you operate from a singular form, this is how you conquer all adversity. Right? So that's why you see people, some men are overly masculine and some women are overly feminine. And what I mean by overly feminine, they become Lilith-like. Just ready to kill any goddamn thing. Ready to destroy anything. Overly masculine is the same thing. You're just ready to conquer and take over any goddamn thing at any cost. That's basically the whole history of Christianity. That's why Christians enslaved so many people and killed so many people with their over masculinity. Exactly, the Shiva Shakti. You must operate as one unit. But you must accept the devil. Right? It's not enough to accept the Christ. the false Christ. But again, that's why they give you all these idols. People can accept a false Christ, just like they can accept a Muhammad, they can accept a Moses, they can accept a Abraham, or they can accept a Lilith. But there's very, 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 very few people that accept the masculine and the feminine, especially in the androgynous form. There's very few people. These are like the minority of the planet. Well, that's why we're here. That's 93, right? One of the deities within the Thelemic system is the Baphomet. For this exact reason. So I'm not just mentioning the Baphomet, that's actually one of the deities in Thelema. Do your research. So everything I'm saying is already embodied within the Thelemic teachings. But most people don't read the literature. So they don't know that. But if you know, you know. Right? So to answer the second question of what is real devil worship, hopefully we have that answer now. To combine the divine masculine with the divine feminine. Because that creates what we call the Baphomet, which is the ultimate symbol of what we will call the devil. So it's neither masculine or feminine, it's both. But it can be separated for further understanding. That's why the triple goddess is called Sophia. Sophia is the root word for what we call philosophy. Sophie, philosophy, which then creates religion. This is how a person becomes wise, by being philosophical. You must have a philosophical mind. Philosophical just means all encompassing. It means you're able to see the full picture. You're able to see the full story. You are taking in every degree of those 360 degrees. That's what that represents. You're able to comprehend all 360 degrees. Which the average person can't do because they won't allow themselves to do it. And honestly, fuck them. Because these are the people that make the world a fucked up place, as I said in the beginning. Because they're in balance. These are the people why that's just all over the place, fucking shit up, causing all type of mayhem. So that's why we gotta step in and bring balance. That's why a witch exists. Because this world is in balance, and the only people that are qualified to bring balance to this world is a witch, is a magician, is an occultist. Because they are the only ones that's looking at everything and can accept all things. And occultist isn't somebody who just looks at Christian teachings. You're also looking at Islamic teachings. You're also looking at Kabbalistic teachings. You're looking at it all. And you combine it into one full science. Which is, you see, I say that all the time. Memorize all of it. That includes the tarot, the Kabbalah, astrology, numerology. So on is palmistry, necromancy, aromancy, scopumancy. Memorize it all. Because it's all yours anyway. Right? You should do some videos on the way of the witch. The way of the witch just represents the seven forbidden, not the seven forbidden laws. What is it called? The seven forbidden sciences or something. Right? You have to be a master of the seven forbidden sciences. Okay, necromancy, aromancy, scopumancy, sorcery, pyromancy, geomancy, right? Which is basically just the master of the elements. And that includes the necro elements, and that's why necromancy is there. You just are a master of the elements. Pyromancy, hydromancy, geomancy, aromancy, scopumancy. necromancy. That's the way of the witch, right? You are the master of the elements, the real elements. But this makes you public enemy number one. This is what makes you infamous. This is what gains you infamy because you become a sorcerer. You know how to absorb souls, extract souls, and then redirect them for a different purpose and a different kind. So it's really, like I keep trying to say, it's just that simple. I guess it isn't. The true hurdle that must be conquered is your own consciousness. Once you have accepted these things, it's easy. Once you accept these things, it's not hard to do. The hardest thing to do is accept it because we have to get over our programming. You have to get over your subconscious programming to be either overly masculine or overly feminine. Yeah, you must become androgynous. But it's hard to become androgynous when you hate the opposite, which there's so many people out there that they just hate their opposite. But it reflects in their lives. So they're not getting away from anything. The universe is all about checks and balances. So these people are not happy. They can put on whatever front, but it's all about checks and balances. There's no way you're gonna hate the opposite and be at peace. Because if you are a man and you hate women, that means you hate your own feminine essence, which is a part of you. If you are a woman that hates men, a man that hates women, you hate a part of yourself, which is why I've been making videos about self-hate. Self-hate is you hating your opposite. That's really what it comes down to. You hate your opposite. You accept a part of you, but it's a part of you that you refuse to accept. You respect the horn god, but you don't respect the triple goddess. Or you respect the triple goddess, but you don't respect the horn god. Because the only way for you to merge them is one, and you must accept them. You must become it. You must become the 5 points. That is the way of the witch. The way of the witch is the 5 points. Right? You must accept the 5 points. Right? You must accept the 5 points. 5 points, the five elements, again, horn god, triple goddess, is just that simple. That's all the witch does, is continuously activating those 5 points, continuously practicing those seven forbidden arts. Yeah, that's what it is, the seven forbidden arts. You become a master of the seven forbidden arts. Right? I wrote an article about it on my website a long time ago. But that's what a witch occupies themselves with those arts. That's why they are forbidden. That's why they're called the forbidden arts, because if you were caught practicing one of these arts, they were going to kill you. That's why they're called the forbidden arts. If it was found out that you were a necromancer, a sorcerer, a aeromancer, a pyromancer, hydromancer, a geomancer, a scopumancer, you were killed. It's just that simple. That's why they call it the forbidden arts. So you better not get caught doing any of that because you will get your life took. So they did all they possibly could do to suppress this. The religious people, the history of religion, they have done, every religion has come together to try to destroy the way of the witch. Every religion. And they just wanted to preserve what they wanted to preserve. And then that's what we have today. Just a bunch of people doing a bunch of spells and shit. White magicians practicing white magic, but they don't want nothing to do with black magic, because black magic is war magic. It has nothing to do with the color of the skin. Black magic is war magic. Black magic is what freed the people in Haiti from the British rule. That's what black magic. Black magic is dealing with poison. Black magic is dealing with death. Black magic is how you become free from oppression, because you're willing to go to war spiritually. Right? It's just that simple. that definition now, are you? Black magic is war magic. Exactly. The dark arts is the arts of war. Magical war. Magical warfare. To be a master of magical warfare. Because that's the only thing that's going to free us. There's not enough money in this world you can make to truly be free. How do we know? Just look at a Kanye West. Kanye West is a billionaire, but he's still going to war with all these companies. You think he's at peace? I'm just saying. Look at all these millionaires in front of us. Look at all these entertainers. Look at all these rappers. Always arguing, beefing. Do they look happy? That's why they have to flash their money in front of your face to give the illusion that they're actually happy. They're not. Because how do you find time to beef if you're truly happy, if you're truly at peace within? We don't see that. We don't see these people truly happy because they're not. Because money is not going to do it. Money is good. I'm not saying don't get it. But to feel that that is the solution to all your problems is inaccurate. The solution is a magical solution. It's a spiritual solution. It's a psychological solution. You must detox yourself from the programming that we all were subjected to. You must cleanse your own karma to be free. Because all money is going to do is bring all that karma out of you. That's how people end up losing their lives. Going overboard, overindulging, becoming fiends and addicts. Because the karma is still there. Now you just have money to cover it up and to hide behind it. That's all it is. It's just that simple. So take this with you and activate it. And become the witch that you know you truly are. By activating the Christ within. That devil shit. That jinn shit. Be on demon time. Never lift a finger to make this shit happen until it's time. Master your black arts. Right? Be the architect of war and access your true freedom. 93, 93.